At least 3 kings are mentioned in the Bible with the name Darius, or Daryl. The best known of them is the king who ruled over the city of Babylon after the fall of the Babylonian Empire in the face of the offensive fear person. This king is called Darius, or Fear. And it was during his reign that the prophet Daniel was thrown into the lion's grave. Fear, was believed to be born in approximately 601 or 600 BC. Since when Babylon fell in 539, its age was 62 years. A criticism of King Darius is the fact that he is not quoted in any historical source other than Scripture, and because of this, his real existence has been questioned by many people. Moreover, there is no historical record of any king who has ruled between the reigns of Nabonidus, Belshazzar, and Cyrus of Persia. Because of this difficulty in proving its historicity, some scholars claim that Daniel's book records a historical error. However, the lack of evidence that explicitly relate the King Darius in the book of Daniel with some historical character does not necessarily imply that there is indeed a mistake in the book. To try to resolve this difficulty, some possibilities have been suggested on who the Darius king would have been in history, as we will see below. The first of these is that Darius was Kiro, the Great. Cyrus was the known emperor of Persia, about whom there is no doubt about his historicity. It was he who advanced on Babylon in the expansion of the territorial boundaries of his empire, which culminated in the fall of Babylon in the days of Nabonidus and Belshazzar. He was believed to be about 60 years old when he won Babylon, and according to the inscriptions found about him, he has appointed many subordinate governors and officers to govern the empire. If he was actually refilled in Daniel 6, then Darius could have been a title for Kiro. To justify the designation of Fear, some sources suggest that he had ancestry in the royal house. He was a close prince. If this is the case, then the passage of Daniel chapter 6 verse 28, where Daniel reads, "For he prospered in the reign of Darius and the reign of Kiro, the Persian," must be understood as follows. Daniel therefore prospered in the reign of Darius, namely in the reign of Kiro, the Persian. With this, the writer might be explaining the use of sources that gave 2 names to the same person, something that would be grammatically possible in the language in which the book was written. The second possibility is that Darius was Gobers. Gobiles was a governor of Babylon appointed by Kiro, the Great. Old documents mention him as the ruler of Babylon and the region beyond the Euphrates River for at least 14 years. There is another character of the same time and with the same name, or at least similar, which served as Cyrus' general and led Babylon's conquest by Persian. According to Nabonidus' chronicle, this character he died weeks after the conquest of Babylon. Some have suggested that Darius may have been the last Gobres, and that there is a possible error in the Nabonidus chronicle, which attests to his death, which perhaps there was a confusion in interpretation, and that the 2 Gobs are actually a single person, and which corresponds to the Darius of Daniel. Daniel's book records important information about the government of Darius, from which we can highlight. Darius had the title of king. He had the authority to name governors subordinate to him, and the prophet Daniel was one of them. The years were told according to the period of his reign. If Darius was the Gobiles subordinate to Cyrus, such information does not represent any kind of conflict. Why? In the book of Daniel, Belshazzar is called king, although he was corrective with Nabonidus. This makes possible the designation of Darius as king. Daniel's book at no time states that Darius was the great emperor of the empire, but that he was constituted king over the kingdom of the Chaldeans. Daniel chapter 5, verse 31. The episode in which he could not go against the law of fears and the Persians may indicate legislation or government superior to him. Leaving the discussions aside about his identity, what we know is that the prophet Daniel was thrown into the lion's grave during the government of King Darius. At that time, Daniel prospered a lot, and this ended up envying the other presidents and governors subordinate to Darius in the empire. Then they gathered and managed to architect a plan for Daniel to be killed. They caused Darius to establish a decree that for a time all the petitions should be made only to the king, and then any prayer or request to a god or another man is prohibited. As soon as they managed to catch the prophet praying to God, they denounced him and demanded his execution in the lion's pit. Darius, he was very fond of prophet Daniel, but he could not go against his own decree. So, with great regret, the king launched Daniel into the lion's pit. Darius spent that night fasting and also had no sleep. At dawn, he went in a hurry to the lion's grave, and when he found Daniel alive, quickly took him out of the pit and threw the men who had accused the prophet. In addition to Darius, fear. The Bible mentions two other kings with that same name. The first is Darius, the Great, also called Darius the First. He is mentioned in the book of the prophet Agel. He is mentioned exclusively in the book of the prophet Neck.